bad boy? Excellent. It's 6:31 p.m. I call this meeting of the Transportation Board of the Town of Brookline to order and welcome everyone and to establish a quorum. Dan Martin, do you mind calling the roll, please?
Not at all. Nancy?
Here.
Richard? Wendy?
Here.
Len?
Present.
Brian?
I'm here. Okay, so we have a quorum and it's been established and we are legal. Excellent. I want to officially welcome Mr. Richard Murphy. Richard, this is your first meeting. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, Richard Murphy, town meeting member in precinct 16. Glad to be aboard and looking forward to transportation issues.
Well, we're very glad to have you. We're certainly glad to have your voice from South Brookline, and X just really happy you're here. So welcome and congratulations, or condolences, actually. So
Thank you, Brian.
we will begin the meeting as we always do with public comment. If anybody would like to make a comment on items not on the agenda, please use the raise hand function and I'll call upon you in the order in which I see you. Please note that we will have a public comment period for every item on the agenda. If there's a particular item, however, that is not on the agenda that you'd like to tell the board about, please raise your hand and we would be delighted to hear from you. All right, I see 14 participants and I see no one here. Jesse, I appreciate the applause. Thank you. I assume that was for me. I don't see any hands, so we'll close the public comment. Oh, Jesse raised his hand. Jesse, go ahead, please, sir.
Sorry, Brian.
No
I
worries.
raised the wrong icon. I apologize.
No worries.
How are you?
Good, Dr. Hefter. Please make your comment.
Yeah, so we're going to get to one of the items a little later on, so I'll leave that off now. I have three quickies I wanted to bring out. One was back in November of last year, we met with you and Rabbi Ox to talk about the parking signs in front of Torah Academy on Williston Road. At the time, the minutes I think reflected it would take several months for that to happen. I met with him today and we're 3 months out and nothing, the two signs haven't been replaced. How would we proceed? What's your recommendation?
I imagine that was an issue of weather, given the winter conditions, but
Okay.
I don't know. So Sam, Dan, can you enlighten me or enlighten Dr. Hefter?
We'll follow up tomorrow,
Okay.
Jesse, and check on that and give you a status update.
Super. Thank you. The second one was this is the second or third Wednesday in a row I've driven up Beacon Street at a certain time because of an appointment, and the just noting to you guys that the left turn sign that's located at the T-stop at Coolidge Corner itself at Beacon and Harvard is so covered up with other signs now that people routinely make the left turn going west on Beacon Street onto Harvard, crossing the train tracks. The left turn sign's there, Dan, but it's completely obliterated by other signs that have been placed in front of it. So if you're in the lane, you can't see it. I had two vehicles in front of me at 12:30 in the afternoon today, make the left turn. One last
Appreciate
week
that.
in front of me. So it's just something to keep it, maybe pay a little attention to. There are other signs that have been mounted that almost completely cover the left turn sign. And then the third item is that we did have a bicycle advisory committee meeting about a week ago with that Sam Downs presented some information about the Chestnut Hill Avenue Complete Streets project. We never had a neighborhood meeting. We're wondering if a neighborhood meeting is going to be planned. That hasn't been done yet. We're also concerned about when the Transportation Board will be taking it up so that we have time to do our research and provide a well thought out set of proposals back. Tam and I spent a week trying to get in touch with each other, but I guess the DPW meeting yesterday with Select Board might have pulled a lot of people out of their regular, schedule. So we'll still try to do that. But we do want to know, if possible, when the transportation board would be taking that up so that we can, you know, after a neighborhood meeting takes place. And so so that we'll be able to, prepare ourselves for the transportation board meeting appropriately.
So I have an entirely unsatisfactory and bureaucratic answer for you, which is that the economic development folks are the lead on this. And so we're also taking our cues from them.
Okay.
And I know that's a terrible answer, but it's it's an honest one. So I honestly don't know, but I understand
Okay.
your point and want to get out there with you. Sam, am I wrong on that?
No, you're not. So I would just add, Jesse, I have sent you a couple emails. I've been trying to reach you to set up a time to talk. Our department has worked to revise the plans to include parking protected bike lanes. So it would be designated, there would be parking on both sides. We can alternate the sides of parking on Chestnut Hill Ave. So we have listened to the public's feedback and made significant improvements to include parking all along Chestnut Hill Avenue. And so that's what I was hoping to discuss with you. This is obviously not the time and place for that,
Right.
but I would love to have a conversation with you about that and
Sure.
how we've dramatically changed the project scope to address all the items that were at the Bicycle Advisory Committee. That was also advertised as a public hearing. So, I mean, there will be further discussion at the Transportation Board meeting. But I was hoping to connect with you.
Yeah, I know.
Given yeah, so you should see a couple emails from me that I'm just trying to, you know, find some times that you
yeah,
can talk.
I mean, yeah. I've responded to every one of them. It's just we haven't found a time yet. So we'll.
I have maybe they're going to my spam, but I just
Okay.
since your original email, I haven't heard from you.
Oh, okay, because I've responded to each one of them. Okay, so so we're concerned that there be some kind of neighborhood meeting. I'm not necessarily speaking for everybody yet. I mean, at this point or even further. I mean, as far as the Chestnut Hill Avenue project, there may be somebody else that wants to represent the whole neighborhood, although I am a resident. So yeah, I'll check for your email and we'll move forward. Okay.
Thank you.
And again, I mean, just so, because the meeting's being recorded, so we'll get this on the record. It's until we've seen what changes have been made, I would not necessarily conclude that all the changes that the neighborhood raised have been addressed. We don't know yet until we see it. Unless it comes out, unless it's produced on the website, project website online, you know, on brooklinema.gov, then we can look at it. But other than that, we wouldn't know.
So the goal was to connect with you and
Okay, sure.
let you know, and then we will. I've summarized all the comments. The Bicycle Advisory Committee meeting was recorded, so I've
Great.
compiled all the comments. Internally, we already had a discussion with town staff to modify the design to move to parking protected bike lanes. And we will be sending it to the consultant to make updates to the concept plans, and we'll have those posted online.
Great.
Okay. More than a week at a minimum before the T-board meeting. The next one is until April 30th, which is our goal to bring the plans to the transportation board. So we're about 6 weeks away, 5.5.
Oh, so that is the next meeting. Okay, that's good to know. When this will be, so you're planning to bring it up then? At fourth.
That is the goal as of
the goal.
now.
Okay. All right, so that's a little different what Brian said in terms of not knowing when the date would be. So I'm glad that you've shared that.
I
date.
just learned it tonight myself.
There you go. Me too. So there we are, Brian. Okay, good to share. Thank you. I'll wait on the fourth item until we get to a later item in the agenda. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you. Any other public comments at this time for items not on the agenda? Can use the raise hand function. Okay, seeing none, we're going to close the public comment period.
Can I-
Thank you, everyone.
just-
Oh, sorry, Deborah Brody, go ahead, please.
Yes, is the traffic calming on the agenda?
Can you be a little more specific? Which one?
Russet Road,
calming.
South Street, South Brookline. Russet Road, South Street specifically?
Well, why don't you make your comments? Because I'm not sure, but I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Okay, so traffic calming has been an issue for many years in South Brookline. South Street specifically is a cut-through street, unfortunately, and we have gone around and done our own research, and looked at speed limits in nearby areas, parallel areas and other areas on South Street. And they are 25 miles per hour, and on some streets, 20 miles per hour. Ours is 30 miles per hour. And even with 30 miles per hour, people are zooming down. I have pictures and I can send them.
I believe you. I just thought I thought we reset the townwide speed limit to 25, but maybe that didn't get translated out to you. And if so, that's wrong, and we should fix that, and we will very soon.
Okay, and the other thing we wanted to talk about was how to really calm the traffic on these streets. And I know there was talk about putting in large speed bumps in some areas like they have in Brookline. We already have a rotary, but we needed something else going towards Temple Emmett, because trucks and cars zoom down this street. And it's also a residential street with lots of families and young children. So that's kind of, we've already sent in a letter as well. So anyway, that's kind of what we wanted to put up tonight, because we're very concerned about the safety.
As are we.
So thank you for listening.
No, thank you for commenting. So Dan, Sam, anyone else? Let's look at this, see what signage is out there. I thought we lowered every speed, every
Yep.
street. I remember
Yeah,
reading
I
a
was-
really long list.
I was just checking, South Street is approved for 20-mile-per-hour safety zone signs.
Cool.
We are installing them townwide. It's just a slow process.
Yep.
We're requesting more money to buy more signs. I think that's in the upcoming budget. And Highway hasn't removed all the old signs yet, because they want to take the old sign down and put the new one up. So that's probably why the 30-mile-per-hour is still in place.
So are you going down to 20 miles per hour?
Yes.
Yep, South Street will be
Oh,
20.
thank you. That would be great. We so appreciate that. I just want you to know, speaking from the residents of South Street, I also wanted to ask you, who do we talk to about possibly putting in speed bumps, large speed bumps like they have in? How do you go
Yeah.
about doing that, or do we need an assessment? I'm not sure how to go about
It's
that.
really a question of money, and
Okay.
we don't have the budget to do all of the traffic calming everywhere we would like to do it, to be very
Okay.
honest with you.
Okay.
I would love to see these things many more places.
Got it.
Dan, Sam, I don't know if South Street's on the list, or if so, where it is. Do you know?
I can share that just in the last week, we have gone through the complete data analysis portion of our new traffic calming policy, and just yesterday to the select board and tonight at the sub advisory committee for DPW's budget, presented the first cluster of streets that we will be implementing speed humps on, which is a really exciting step. But I do not know at this time where South Street ranks. I just know that it's not
Okay.
in the first group.
That's okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. You know what? I understand that things are going to, changes are incremental. I get that. I so appreciate lowering the speed limit at least to 20 miles per hour. That's going to make hopefully a big difference. And I hope people will take that, take that to heart when they're driving. And if you can't do speed bumps right now, we'll continue to have this discussion. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
We'll try
Thank
to
you very much, man.
prioritize South Street in the coming month if we can.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other comments for items not on the agenda? Last time okay. I think going once, twice. Okay, I'm really closing it this time. So we're closing the public comment period, and we're gonna move on to our next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. So there are 5 things on the consent agenda. I will read them. Approval of the February 5th, 2025 minutes, addition of an accessible parking space on Center Street for the farmer's market, request for an accessible parking space on Churchill Street, request for a new crosswalk at Dean Road and Penniman Road, and approval of the special outdoor dining permit for Punch Bowl, Prairie Fire, and Hamilton Restaurant. And approval of the consent agenda approves each of these items as a whole. And so for my fellow board members, is there any item that folks would like to see removed from the consent agenda and discussed individually?
I have
Richard.
one question, Brian. Yeah,
Yeah.
just on the requests for the Dean Road and Pennington Road crossing. Seeing that on Google Maps. I didn't get a chance to get out to the site, but just curious what that crosswalk request looks like.
So the Safe Routes to School Task Force identified this as a location where in either direction, there are two intersections of the road that do not have a crosswalk across Dean Road. Individuals from that neighborhood would have to go up to Chestnut Hill Ave. And the Penniman Road crossing goes to Penniman Place and the playground, adjacent playground. So DPW believes that we can paint a crosswalk, and that because the wheelchair ramps are already in above average good condition. So this would provide a means of crossing Dean Road more safely for the residents of that neighborhood to the playground.
Thanks, Sam.
I had a question on 3. What is the fee we're charging for these outdoor dining permits?
Dan, do you know the fee?
There is a fee. I don't know the amount. I don't have that with me. It's
It's
charged through
greater
the
than
select board's
0.
office. It is.
Okay. All right. I don't remember seeing it in the packet, but okay, cool. All right. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second,
I'll take that as a motion by Nancy and a second by Wendy. Can someone please call the roll?
Nancy,
yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Len,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes,
Brian,
Yes,
and I see that Jonathan is not here tonight.
pesky day
Thank you.
job. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. And those items are approved. We'll now move to item 4, item 4A, which is a member update. Does anybody have an update? Okay, how about a DPW update?
Dan and Amy are in the other meeting, but I can give an update.
Please do.
It's a busy season for road and sidewalk improvements, and we're starting to plan the construction. This year's highlights is for the bond wearing surface program. We're doing Beacon Street, and it's going to be from Winthrop to Harvard, Sumner Road, Craftsland Road, Arlington Road, and Pond Ave. And the bond wearing surface is like a driveway sealant that goes on top, about 1/4 inch, and helps preserve the roadway. To the regular person, it will look like a repaved road. For mill and overlay, which is a little more in depth, they took off the top layer of the road and then put a new layer on top. We're doing Russet Road, Tully Street, Heath Street from Tully Street to Holly Lane, South Street from West Roxbury Parkway to Newton Street, Arlington Road, and sidewalk improvements are planned along these same paving jobs to help bring all the wheelchair ramps up to accessibility and improve any trip hazards and pinch points. And then any other questions, either on the memo or other items I can address.
Thank you, Dan. I saw the memo. My question was on, and of course I just lost it. Well, don't worry. I can, I'll find it. Anybody have any questions for Dan at this time? Okay. My question was about the Vision Zero. I see work continues. Are we almost done? Is that almost done? Are they almost done?
Sam should be able to answer that one
Please.
for us.
Please tell me they're almost done.
Sorry, what was that, Brian? What's almost done?
The Vision Zero Committee.
Yeah,
action
so
plan.
Vision Zero, we're planning to have one last meeting at the beginning of April, and the goal is to bring the action plan to the select board at either their last meeting in April or the beginning of May. So we're really excited to wrap that process up in the next month and a half here.
I would encourage you to get that done sooner than later, given that Mr. Sandman will be leaving the select board. So
Absolutely.
and he's chairing that. So, and just please let us know on this board when that is so we can attend if we want.
Absolutely. The plan is to bring the Vision Zero action plan to this board at the April 30th meeting. And then the first meeting in May for the select board. So you all will see it at the end of next month.
Cool. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I am going to, let's see here now. Let's see, is Bitsy Perlman here? Do you know if Dave Porter, you're here. Do you know if she's coming?
My belief is that none of them are coming.
Okay.
And I'll check the participant list and update you if anything on that.
Dr. Hefter, how can I help you, sir?
Yeah, quick question, Brian. The list that Dan mentioned of the streets that are going to be first on the list, are those published somewhere for the public?
I believe it is with the select board. And I
Okay.
believe it's part of the budget process the town meeting is going through.
So
But
it's
someone
in
can
the-
correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, I'm in town meeting. I read through the whole warrant. It
I
has
know.
like the total amounts, but it doesn't say Russet Street, this street, Holly Street from here to here.
Yep.
Is that detail available for the public? If that's
I believe it will be, but we wanted to give due deference to the select board and the advisory committee to go through their processes first. So
Perfect.
yes, once that all happens, we will certainly make that public. We're not trying to hide anything here.
Of course. No. Thanks.
No, thank you. All right, so I'm going to take the chairman's prerogative and I'm going to move item 5C to the top of the fifth section just because I want to be respectful of time. So this is a question of discussion and action on the request from the Shared Mobility Advisory Committee to expand to 7 members and appoint 3 new members. The DPW staff recommendation is that we vote to expand the Shared Mobility Advisory Committee to 7 members and appoint Monique Richardson, Sean Sachs, and Bitsy Perlman for a term starting immediately and ending March 1, 2028. Mr. Porter, would you like to say anything?
I
on
would.
behalf
I'd
of
like
SMAC?
to. I would like to request 1-year terms for those if possible. That was my initial request. Reason is that just for new folks, I'd rather have the 1 year to give them time to get their feet under them, see how they like the process, and see how we all work together.
Okay, so you want the term to expire
20. What year is it? 26th.
the fiscal July 1 of 26?
Yes, please.
Is that amenable? So no one's made a motion yet, so I think we can make that work. Okay. And you're happy with expanding the size? This was your idea, and I really appreciate all the work that you guys have done, you folks have done. It's been great, you and Eric, and I'm really grateful for all the work you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone have any questions about SMAC or expanding it or appointing these 3 folks? If not, would someone like to make a motion to appoint the 3 people mentioned for a 1-year term to expire June 30th, 2026?
I will make the motion.
Thank you, Len. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. Dan or Sam, can you call the roll?
Glenn,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Richard,
I think I have to abstain. I'm on shared mobility.
you're
Not anymore, you're
actually
not.
you're no longer on shared mobility.
All right, well, Brian and I haven't had a chance to have a conversation yet, so yes,
And Brian,
okay.
I'm a yes.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
Dave, I got something new.
I will miss you, man. Appreciate it a lot.
I didn't know until I talked with Brian, so,
This is the right move. We're glad to see you here.
okay. Nope, appreciate it and
everybody.
all the support.
Okay, so thank you, Dan. Dave, you can leave us unless you want to hang around. You're more than welcome, of course. So now we're gonna
Yeah.
go back to the agenda as it was originally intended, and we will take item 5A, which is, I believe, the Gateway East. Dan or Sam, do you want to introduce this one?
Great. This is your quarterly updates. This is quarter 2. The MBTA will be giving a presentation, and we have Elaine Bodie and Ben Silverstein here for the MBTA. And I'll let Elaine take it off.
Great, thank you. Just gonna get the screen share set up.
Thanks. And just a reminder, we have 15 minutes scheduled for this presentation.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm Eileen Bodie, I'm project manager on MBTA's transit priority team, joined with my colleague Ben Silverstein, transit analyst for bus transformation. So we first put in January with a much longer presentation that covered the background and history. So we'll keep tonight's very brief, about 15 slides in 5 minutes. There are over 100 slides of data and findings in the appendix that cover the analysis in detail. So after our quick summary, happy to take any questions. And again, this is quarter 2. We'll be back for quarters 3 and 4 and a final report in the future. So in terms of project status and operations, a couple quick updates are that the transit signal priority is still delayed with being fully deployed. The adaptive signal system is working as intended with no adverse effects to general traffic, but we hope to have an update soon on the troubleshooting that the vendor is doing with the TSP. The bus lane enforcement has not yet started. However, we also hope to hear some updates by next quarter. The town's coordinating that with PD. And then just wanted to mention that, we heard your concerns last quarter about Route 9, the eastbound approach to the bus lanes, and the town is reviewing signage options there to give drivers some advanced warning to help better organize those queues. And then just as a reminder, this map shows where Gateway East fits in on that bus priority vision plan. Won't go into depth, but just wanted to follow up on your request to hear a little bit more about the greater network context for this project and what it links to. And so when we think about Gateway East and its connectivity, one of the routes that stands out is the 66. It's the second busiest route in our system and the busiest one that goes through Gateway East, and it links across several frequent bus routes and rapid transit lines. So looking specifically at the Route 66, there are several projects that have been installed to address other delays and issues throughout the route. There's a lot of information here, but just a quick summary is that there was a reroute through the Harvard Bus Tunnel recently for more efficient routing. Bus lanes were added to Brighton Avenue along with transit signal priority more recently. And then just east of Gateway East down at the bottom, a planning process does envision transit-only lanes for the gap that is between Gateway East over to the Huntington Avenue bus lanes. And then finally, the ongoing LMA study may identify future areas of need and opportunity nearby. And so we're going to briefly summarize the bus travel times and general purpose traffic observations on those metrics. Starting with bus travel times, we're going to show 2 slides on this. First, we're seeing the AM inbound peak. Bus lanes are providing consistent travel times and also protecting bus service from worsening. Overall, in both directions, we're seeing that it's generally consistent from last quarter, slower outside of the bus lanes, potentially with delays moving back into mixed traffic. In this AM inbound peak, some changes of note from the first quarter are that segment A, which is the 66 on Harvard Street upstream, continues its trajectory. So we'll investigate the activity there a bit more. The performance did worsen on segments I, F, and E on the 65 and 60. So we'll also take a closer look at those through next quarter. Segment D over on the right is where I just mentioned that the Huntington Avenue future transit lanes are envisioned. And then looking at the PM outbound peak, we see some similar consistencies from quarter 1. But the key difference here is the travel time is improving for bus riders. We're seeing the bus lanes perform really well and achieve significant time savings. Couple changes from the first quarter here are that segment F, which is the 65 coming down Brookline Ave, turning right, continues on a trajectory of being a little bit slower there. And then the performance worsened on segment D, which also did in that AM inbound peak. So we're going to be taking a closer look there too. And so overall here, we're still seeing good results, especially for the 66, where the bus lanes are. But now that we're seeing the trends repeat from last quarter, we can look more closely like upstream and downstream to see what areas are worsening or having delay and what's contributing to that. Vehicle volumes and speeds remain very similar to last quarter. Also, average volume decreased by 3% in the study area. Most observed speeds also decreased. And then looking at individual corridors, the volumes on Route 9 decreased slightly with some moderate increase on side streets. For travel times for general traffic improved somewhat and delays remained similar. Looking at delays on the approaches on the diagram on the left, they remained constant or decreased slightly. And then the corridor travel times end to end, shown in the tables on the right, reduced slightly, with one exception being the inbound AM peak, which we'll monitor more through next quarter. And then lastly, the vehicle queue lengths have seen minor increases at most approaches. However, it's important to mention that the delays haven't worsened here. So the signals are processing the queues, and the travel times, seeing some improvement, even if those queue lengths are longer, is important to keep in mind. So just to quickly summarize, the indicators that we have throughout this study help us to see the impacts, contextually and identify where there are trends that we should monitor more closely, or what's just an outlier that doesn't repeat another quarter. So overall, we saw a lot of consistency from the first quarter, and now with seeing the bus travel times stay consistent or improved, general purpose traffic not worsening significantly and even seeing some improvements. This helps us to see the full picture of what's happening with the bus lanes so far and how they're performing. So we do have more areas to look into more closely now that we've identified some of those trends and some of those areas that we've seen a repeat of patterns. So this gives us more information to dig into. We'll continue that monitoring, especially in those areas we're going to zoom into a bit more, report back on Q3, and then we do hope to have updates soon on the transit signal priority, as well as the education and enforcement program with PD. And this time, happy to take any questions. As I mentioned, there's a lot of data in the appendices for each of those different metrics that we briefly covered. So that's over 100 slides worth of detail, but happy to answer any specific questions you might have based on the summary so far.
Well, thanks, Eileen. I will go first and then we'll open it up to the board. So I guess it's outbound. Can you go back to that slide on outbound, please? I guess so section D there with the increased travel time. Actually, sorry, can you go forward one? Let's it was more of a the
You
next slide.
mean
There it
for
is
the
there.
inbound
Yeah,
first?
that one there. Section A here. Is there any sense that the bus lane itself is causing that 15-second slower travel time in that segment?
So, and Ben can chime in as well. One thing I'll say is that we're seeing a similar pattern there with segment D on inbound. So that tells us it's not just the bus lane. It does show, that there's likely, patterns throughout the morning of just the general traffic contributing to that. And then again, once you get to D, there aren't any bus lanes where that's approaching, the inbound direction there.
Right.
So
Is
it's
there any-
tough, that section with, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I mean, so the transit lane on Huntington's been promised for a long time. And I'll ask Boston about this, but I don't think there's no plans to implement that anytime soon, I don't think, right?
Yeah, I don't have the latest update on that, but I'd be happy to also look into that for you all and share back. And yeah, not in the near term in terms of, say, next construction year by any means that I'm aware of, but
Right.
there would be
And
a
this
very
is not
small...
on it's not on you at all. We've had this experience with bike lanes. It's once you start connecting them and really getting a network is when you really start to see an effect. And individual segments can have a positive effect, but you really get the big bang for the proverbial buck once you start connecting them. So I understand that. Thank you.
Sure.
And enforcement, everyone's favorite topic. I think we talked about this in January. Are TPD meant to be enforcing this? How do you suggest we go about this if we go about it at all?
So my understanding is it's Brookline PD, in terms of the bus lanes, typically the municipality will enforce the bus lanes on their right of way. Dan, I'm not sure if you have any context to add in there in terms of the coordination with PD.
I think Mike Murphy might have a few words on the enforcement and Brookline Police's involvement in that.
Yeah, we've been down there probably at least once a week for approximately 3 months now. And the only difficulty we're having is when we do find a violation, we're actually blocking the bus lane ourselves. We're trying to figure out a better way to pull them off to the side or get them in a different area, but that's the issue right now.
That's great. Thank you, Deputy Superintendent. Do you feel like you have everything you need in terms of information and legal authority and all that stuff? Is there anything that we can help you with or the T can provide to you or anything?
I think we're good at this time. If we need anything further, I will reach out and contact.
Sir. Okay. Okay, that answers my questions. Any member of the board have any questions for Miss Butty?
Following up on what you were just talking about, Brian, is the T planning cameras, which that newly passed law, which would address some of these violations.
So I can't speak to the details of this particular area. What I can say is that the bus mounted camera enforcement would be for vehicles that are parked in the bus lanes rather than the moving violations. So that's where that support from PD is really critical with the moving violations.
Yeah,
And-
so Richard, I can jump in here a little bit because I've worked on this a lot in my day job. The law that was passed was to allow moving T buses to do enforcement. I don't think the law is there yet to allow cameras on sort of stanchions or on lights that would, and that's what we would need out here. So
Okay, all right. It was the school buses that had that, right?
yeah. So we
Yeah.
I for one would like us to get there, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I'm good.
Thank you, sir. Wendy.
In terms of enforcement, are we in all of our data we're collecting, are we getting metrics in terms of like activity of enforcement, how many warnings are given or anything like that?
So is your question, what is the number, or is the question, is the town sharing with the T and vice versa?
I was wondering if we would know that, whether we're getting that data and if it's coming to the T board as one part of the, us understanding the whole picture. Only because I ride through here on my commute, so I see, all the cars in there every day. So I'm just curious what level of, enforcement is happening. When I know you said it was, I think, once a week, but I'm curious how many people are sort of given warnings during that time.
So Deputy Superintendent, can you provide us that information, maybe at a follow-up? Just let us know how many warnings have been issued or citations have been issued, stuff like that, please.
Sure, I'll get that information. I want to say the first few months that we're doing it, a great number of them were verbal warnings for educational purposes.
Understood.
Yeah, I remember that was part of the plan. Thank you.
Any other questions for the T? Hold on, Dave. Just gonna get to the board, rest of my board first. Okay, I don't see any further questions. Dave, as the chair, co-chair of SMAC, you can also ask a question because you're also a nice guy.
Appreciate that. Is there any, let's see, the Pierce School has moved half of its, traffic to the old Lincoln School. I saw that mentioned in the previous set of slides from the previous quarter. Is there a sense or like is there a sense of how much that is contributing, or is that not something that's really something you can glean from the data?
Yeah, and Dan, I'm not sure if you have anything you want to add to this question as well. We noted that this, could result in, some anomalies throughout the area there. We haven't seen anything that's clearly tied to the school. But, that's something we can also follow up with, for next quarter, take a closer look at, whether that's something that's causing any challenges. But so far, I don't think that from our analysis, it's directly causing any major impacts.
Yeah, probably when the school moves back, traffic will be a little better. We know the pickup and drop off is happening on Route 9 in front of Old Lincoln and some activity on Walnut Street. And you can definitely see the drop in traffic on Cypress. That is likely due to the Pierce School traffic moving over. But the original impact analysis that we had done for the bus lanes, it accounted for a large growth rate in background projects happening over the years. So I don't think it's not showing any worse impacts than were expected.
Got it. So it's factored into the plan, and not causing any surprises. I'd be shocked if it wasn't causing extra traffic, but it sounds like the key takeaway there is that it's not causing any surprises. Thanks very much.
Hey, thank you, David. All right. Now if anyone has any questions or comments from the public, we'd be delighted to hear them now. Keep in mind, we don't usually do Q&A for every single question from the public, just because we do have to get moving along and we're already 20 minutes behind schedule. So anybody have any questions or comments on this item? Dr. Hefter.
Thank you. This was really interesting. Is there a link, really quick, is there a link to the presentation?
Yep.
Or
We
will
can
it be
put that
made?
in the chat.
Oh, that'd be great. Second thing is, how do commuters, it's a huge pass through Brookline. How are commuters able to give, I know there's the Gateway East survey. I filled it out because I'm in massive traffic jams there as people switch from the right lane to the left lane after they get to the High Street every morning. So Wendy probably sees some of that same behavior. But how do the commuters get to provide feedback about what's happening to them? They shoot through to the bottom, then they shoot through to the front of the fire station. They keep going all the way to get to Pond Avenue. It's just continuous. You can stand there and watch it. But okay, so they're ignoring you because there are no buses around. But what do we do about providing them a mechanism to give us their feedback? Thank you for the link.
So we do have yard signs with large QR codes that were placed earlier in the beginning of the pilot. And now that the weather's improving and the ground's softer, we're going to put the yard signs back out.
Great.
So
Okay,
drivers that are in the queue can use they'll see the website that takes you to Brookline, MA.gov, MBTA, Gateway East dedicated bus lane, or they could take a picture of the QR code and go here. We've also advertised the survey in the Longwood Medical Association newsletter to try and get people that are commuting that work in the Longwood medical area, make them aware of the survey. And we have gotten quite a bit of feedback from commuters already.
Great. All right, great. The other thing was about the slide that showed the 9-minute, 10-minute thing on vehicle wait times, queue times. Yeah. Does that mean that you're seeing between the baseline and second quarter and the AM peak an average of 1.3 minutes more that people are waiting? Is that what that means? Just so I understand the data, first row.
So what you're seeing there in the data, the baseline is the before data, and then the quarter one and quarter two are just what we've seen since then. So in some cases it's gone down, in some cases it's gone up. And so overall it's reduced slightly from the first quarter. But that exception is the morning peak in the inbound direction of that top line.
Okay. So this accounts for the wait for the signal to keep the traffic moving kind of thing, right? So we're saying that if you have, like, commonly, if I'm at the Homewood Suites, it's 3 light cycles until I get to go through the intersection. If I stop at the left lane, cross the middle Lincoln School and stay in the left lane, it's 3 light cycles. So that's 1.3 minutes. It's hard to imagine how it's that short. Okay.
So and I should mention the corridor travel times, these diagrams are back in the appendix, but this is the end-to-end travel time, not the photo on the left. Sorry if that's confusing.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, that's, so I missed out on that. Okay. All right, thank you. Yeah, so, yeah, okay, thanks, I appreciate that. Thank you, Brian.
Oh, no worries. Any other questions? Okay, not seeing any. Miss Body, thank you very much. Do you want to close it out? Are you all set? Anything else you want to tell us?
Thank you. That's all. We'll be back in a couple of months for Q3. And yeah, look forward to talking with you all then.
Appreciate your time. We'll see you then. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
We will move on to item 5B, discussion and acceptance of the Coolidge Corner parking study. Drum roll, please. Hi, Amy. Welcome.
Hi there. We have our consultants here from Stantec. We have Liza Cohen and Jason Schreiber, and they're going to be presenting the plan to you.
Well, Jason and Liza, please take it away.
Sure, thank you. Happy to be here. I just wanted to mention Stantec and our team is really happy to be working with town staff, but also residents and stakeholders in Coolidge Corner. Liza is going to share a lot of details with you. The upshot, what we found is, there's some areas that are problematic in Coolidge Corner. And as a whole, there's a lot of opportunities too. We do studies all across Massachusetts and across North America and have a lot of, I hope, useful recommendations that Liza will walk you through, but no two places are alike. And there's a lot of interesting and unique things about Coolidge Corner that she'll share. Liza, take it away.
Yes, I would love to. Can someone make me a screen sharer, please? Okay, I think that worked. Good to go. All right. Yeah, so thanks everyone. I'm going to walk through today just a very brief overview of the study, some of our key findings, and some of highlights from the strategies that we've developed. I believe you all have our report, which provides a lot more detail. So there's a lot of detail on these slides. I'll try to hit on the highlights in order to keep it short. I know it was mentioned that things are running long, but obviously happy to go back and review anything as needed. So this is a timeline of our project. We actually kicked this off last spring, got out there and did data collection as fast as we could. We've included a public outreach process throughout. So we've been doing workshops and had some online stuff, done a survey. And now here we are in March with kind of our final draft of the plan. Importantly, at the outset of the plan, we worked with town staff to develop some goals for the parking system as a whole. It's really important to have those goals to evaluate kind of how things are working today and where the gaps might be from how you want them to be working in the future. So those are on the screen here. They're in detail in the report, of course, but some important ones to highlight, I think, that this plan achieves are customer-friendly parking environment. That number 3 is really huge for parking, thinking about people who park cars as customers first. Supporting economic vitality and access for businesses was, of course, very important in Coolidge Corner. And then number 10, a system built on data and transparency, which this study does a lot to work toward. So how did we do it? We went out and did an inventory of all parking. I'm sorry, I've lost my clock here. Okay. That means both publicly and privately owned and available. So everything in Coolidge Corner. We captured then went out and counted all the cars in all the spaces. So on a typical weekday and a typical weekend, and we worked with staff to define what those were. And then finally, we of course included bicycle parking here. So did both an inventory and an occupancy count at a midday peak. And this is what we came up with. This number might be surprising when you think about parking in Coolidge Corner, but there are nearly 3,000 vehicle parking spaces in Coolidge Corner. About half of those today are restricted in some way, right? This is parking for the bank only. This is parking for Trader Joe's only, what have you. And the 44%-ish are open to the public, so anyone can park there. And when we do our inventory, we always come at it from the perspective of a visitor. So me, I don't go to Coolidge Corner often. When I drive up, what do the signs tell me I can do? Maybe not so much you folks who might know kind of the inside game you can play with accessing parking in Coolidge Corner. And this is our bicycle parking inventory. We importantly captured the number of racks and all that, but we also did a really brief evaluation of, okay, this might be a rack that's intended for 6 bikes, but can you really fit 6 bikes there, or is it really just 4? So we have the intended inventory and the actual inventory. So this is our utilization, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, but essentially we're able to look at utilization spatially. So you can see the Coolidge Corner T-stop in the middle of the map here, the Fuller Street lot up in the northwest corner, and Trader Joe's pops up in bright red in kind of the middle of the study area, which is probably something you all have experienced, seeing those lots being quite busy. And overall, at your peak, which is at midday, and I'll talk about timing here in a minute, you're about 2/3 occupied. So about 1/3 of those 3,000 spaces are going unused. But importantly, that's might not be the typical experience that you all hear about. If you look at just the core, kind of when somebody drives to Coolidge Corner, where they think they're going to park, that utilization is at what we would consider to be kind of ideal occupancy, but functionally full, right? 85%, about 1 in every 10 spaces available. So things are certainly busy in certain areas and at certain times, as we'll see. So this chart is showing that occupancy by time of day on a weekday. So you can see the time of day across the bottom, and just looking at your peak relative to other times of day. This kind of follows what we typically see in downtowns. There's kind of a lull in the 4 p.m. slot, and then things pick back up again with kind of restaurant and evening activity around the dinner hour. We also sliced and diced this data in a bunch of different ways. I won't go into too much detail here, but this is that core that I was talking about on the 2 weekdays and the weekend where we collected the data. And you can see those bars in the middle of the day are hovering up near that 80 to 90% occupancy. So again, this is where people start to see an issue, even though we are definitely seeing spaces available outside of that core. Important to mention, we also tried to hear from as many people as possible. That involved an online survey, which had a great response. You can see the breakdown of some of those respondents here. We also spent some time, we set up a table actually in the East Center Street lot and kind of grabbed people as they were walking by and said, hey, talk to us about parking, which, every 5th person loves to talk about parking and has a lot of opinions. So that was great. And we were able to get people who didn't wake up in the morning and say, I can't wait to go to the public meeting about parking. So we got some good perspectives there. And, heard a lot of really important opinions, the opinions of residents who are frustrated about parking on their streets, the opinions of folks who see an opportunity to better utilize that West Center Street lot. People who had a lot to say about meters and technology, which is something that the town is already addressing. So pairing those 2 sets of data, the literal count data and inventory and permits and all of that from the town, together with what we hear from the public, gave us a really good perspective on how your parking system is working today, again, relative to those goals. So trying to talk fast, be a good New Englander here. So some of our top findings here. Utilization really varies, both throughout the time of day and spatially. Again, it's really super busy in that core. The Babcock Street lot, the Fuller Street lot, the John Street lot, the garage at the Marriott, those might be less busy at times when it's impossible to find a space in the East Center Street lot. However, your pricing structure is flat. It's pretty much the same price to park everywhere. You might have some variation on time limits. I believe you can park for slightly longer in off-street facilities, which does make sense, but this is something that might be a mismatch. We also heard a lot from residents, and we can see it in the data, that there's a little bit of a parking crunch on side streets, particularly like in the morning hours where maybe residents haven't left for work yet and folks are using their commercial permits. So there are some frustrations around that, and that's something we can look to address. And we know that today, of those 3,000 spaces, many of them are restricted. I mentioned this earlier, right? Like several of these spaces today might be dedicated for a certain business only, but you can see here these counts of, these are just empty spaces at peak time. So either midday peak or on a Saturday night, one of those being your own West Center Street lot. And we want to look for ways to kind of unlock those spaces that exist today and are just going unused. One of the ways to do that is looking at signage. Today, some of your signage is limited. I love this shot. I'm sorry it's from Google Maps on the bottom left, but that's a little sign that points toward the Marriott garage, which has 141 spaces in it. Kind of a hidden gem, as we see when we ask folks, hey, where do you typically park? This was a survey question. You can see people's responses, and overwhelmingly people are saying, hey, I go to the East Center Street lot. It's obviously right in the middle. So few people said that Marriott garage. So that's really kind of an untapped resource that you all have. I thought this was really interesting. We asked, hey, if the town were to investigate some typical things that folks do to improve their parking systems, which one would you prioritize? And people were able to rank and choose and what have you. And a thing that popped up here, which was surprising given your existing meters, was better meters and technology. And again, this is something that the town is looking to address. But this is why it's really important to talk to the public, because just looking at the meters, we would have said, hey, you can pay with a credit card, you can pay with cash, you have lots of options, this should be fine. But people are still frustrated. Another thing that also popped up was improvements to the walking environment and just, making it slightly easier to walk either altogether and not drive a car or walk from slightly farther away. And that's something that can really quickly improve the reach of your parking system. This is a map showing occupancy for bicycle parking, and I apologize, the little pins are really tiny, but what's important here is these purple stars. Those are bikes that are locked to something that is not intended for a bike to be locked to it. So it's a pretty quick and easy way for us to identify where more bicycle parking might be needed. And when we asked people who ride a bike into Coolidge Corner, where would you like to park your bike? Some people might have said, I'm fine parking or locking to a street sign or what have you. People did say, no, I would like a designated rack. So that's good information. And again, this is something that the town is tackling. Important to mention, can go into detail here, but I will spare you since this is a very complicated chart, but we did factor in future demand from some of the projects that you all have in the pipeline, which do, by the way, come with additional parking. So we are able to kind of layer that onto our analysis. So with that, I'm going to dive quickly into strategies so that I can have time for questions. I think I'm doing okay on time. So we broke our strategies into these 4 main areas, and you'll see that's how the report presents them. But overall, we're looking to, again, that customer experience, make sure that people sort of understand this parking system in the same way that it's easy to understand the parking system at the mall, right? Pair that parking system with the overall transportation network. Very often communities consider parking as separate from riding a bike, walking, biking, driving. It really should be considered as part of your overall transportation network. Optimizing existing supply, I mentioned those spaces that go unused. Using those spaces, unlocking them in some way is a much more cost-effective and space-effective way to suddenly increase your supply, rather than building structured parking, which can get very expensive. And then, of course, future-proofing the system, planning for changing demand. So I'll walk through some of these. Again, lots of detail on these slides. I'll try to summarize them fast, but one of the first ones is just to simplify your regulations. So as I mentioned, we went out, we did a fairly comprehensive inventory of all the signs, just like if I'm trying to park on a street, what does the sign tell me the regulations are? And some of them are, permit parking only 8 to 10. Some are permit parking only 7 to 9. That only applies on a weekday in some places. So we think there's room to just sort of consolidate that so that driving in, somebody is not faced with 25 different on-street regulations, and maybe we can get that down to more like 10. And similar thought here, which is just to simplify parking information. Parking is often an ad hoc system, right? Somebody calls up Dan and says, hey, I want XYZ in front of my store. And he goes out and does it. And then all of a sudden you have like 10-minute parking over here, 25-minute parking over there, a sign that's blue, a sign that's green. We think there's room to kind of take a step back, standardize the system, make it easy for everybody to understand. This is something that could apply beyond Coolidge Corner. Love a simplified map. This is something that can be really great for places like the Coolidge Corner Theater, restaurants, businesses, to all be pointing to the same map, the same resource that's really easy to read so that the town can communicate where folks should be parking. Related, overall wayfinding system is really important and is key for parking, not only to help, I mentioned that teeny sign earlier, to help people driving find their space, but to help people walking find their car once they've gotten to their destination, right? So to get back to their car. And that can be, you can do just a parking wayfinding system, but ideally that would be part of an overall townwide standardized wayfinding system. So getting into the next of those sort of 4 strategy areas, We think you should look at a demand responsive pricing approach. So this is a map of Beverly, Massachusetts on the right. They actually have 2 streets that are kind of the core of their business district. So you can see those pop up on the map here. But they've essentially created, a zone that's the core of demand where it's slightly more expensive. Outside of that, it's slightly less expensive. And outside of that, again, it's a little bit less expensive. And that can be a really nice way to decant demand. People who are willing to walk a little bit further. And based on the survey, there are lots of people who are willing to walk a little bit further to pay a little bit less, are able to do that. And then folks who want to park in the core for whatever reason are able to find a space because we've moved people out of the core. One thing that a lot of communities have done is institute this first 15 minutes free at metered spaces. And that's nice because it allows people to do their post office drop off or what have you. And again, it's very customer friendly, eliminates the need to kind of spot create those 15-minute spaces. We have a sort of lengthy list of how we might look at permits differently, but some of that is about adjusting prices to better match demand. Right now, you do have a system where some permits are like 1 permit, 1 space, and they're not being used at that rate. So there might be room to oversell some of those and to consider more of a zonal approach so that you're not assigned to 1 street, you're assigned to a zone, and that kind of allows for more efficiencies there. The key with this, and you'll see this at the end with everything, is really to make some moves, do some counts, see what happens, and keep making moves instead of doing a whole bunch of things all at once and then not testing them, which is something you were just talking about on the last item on the agenda. Curb flexibility is something that a lot of communities are thinking more carefully about these days. If you think about it, there might be 10 parking spaces at a curb in front of 4 businesses, and those 10 parking spaces do not represent the whole of parking available to those businesses. And there's a lot of demand for that curb space. And so there might be better ways, more active ways to use that curb in order to help more people get to the businesses or whatever it is. It's a really valuable area of your downtown. Jason could talk at length about that. But what we've given you is a curbside toolkit, which essentially just is the starting point to have a language to talk about all of the uses that you might want to consider at your curb. I know you already have one of these for Brookline Village, I believe, but it's probably worth thinking about a Coolidge Corner Parking Benefit District where funds that are put toward parking are directly reinvested in the district into improving access to parking, some of those walkability improvements that I talked about, funding the creation of the map. You can even go as far as other multimodal improvements that sort of decrease pressure on the parking system. We think this is a really great tool and something worth considering here. To address some of those bicycle concerns, pursuing new bicycle racks, you have the map of where there's kind of unmet demand. That's a great place to start. We also identified a couple of racks that, as I mentioned today, they might be installed a little too close to the curb, and so they're not quite at the capacity where they should be. So that's one thing to look at, and I know that the town is already looking into this. And then this one's really important. There are a ton of different ways to do this. The example we included, I think, is Concord, but Lexington, many other communities have done this where the town has partnered with some of those restricted parking facilities and open them up to more users. And that can take effect along a spectrum, right? You can either say, okay, now my lot is fully open to the public, or maybe you start with select groups, employees, or people who hold a certain type of permit. There are tons of different ways to do this. But this is a great way to maximize some of your parking. And it starts with you folks. If you open up that West Center Street lot, all of a sudden on weekends, you're going to have a ton more parking in the curb where it might not need to be restricted. And I mentioned this earlier, regularly monitoring and reporting back on parking utilization. Going to work with Dan to get him the materials that we use to do that data collection so that this is relatively easy to do. I know this example is from a big city, Seattle, but it's so scalable where you just collect the occupancy and you kind of report that back along with any changes. You can do it quarterly or every 6 months, that kind of thing. And it feeds back into the changes that you're making. So didn't go through every single recommendation. The ones on this list are missing, but some other kind of important ones to consider. And I want to also mention that as we've done this study, the town has started to do some of these things. So they've implemented an online permit system, which makes it much easier to get permits. That was something that we actually heard about at the first public outreach event. We are, I know we're working on getting new meters in there. There's now a procedure to request an APVP compliant bicycle rack. So things are happening. There's probably things that I've left off this list and the town can talk more about, but that's awesome. And then finally, one thing that's provided in the back of the report is kind of a phasing and implementation strategy. Obviously, you wouldn't go out there tomorrow and do all of these things all at once for a number of reasons. The first being, of course, that there's additional coordination needed for almost all of these and engagement conversations to be had. And then there's also staffing capacity. The town may not have the staff to be able to pursue all of this immediately. And as I mentioned before, you know, establishing a PBD will help with this, but some of this stuff does carry a cost, even something as simple as having a graphic designer develop a map. So we want to acknowledge that, but we did try to think about which things could be phased where and how best to pull this off. So I think hopefully I didn't take up all of my time, but happy to answer any questions and circle back to anything.
Wow, Liza, that was great. Thank you. Well done.
The parking
Thank you.
information.
No, I appreciate that. And you imparted a ton of information in a very digestible manner in a short period of time. So brava.
Great.
I will start. So I have the great honor to chair this board, and I will embarrassedly admit I had no idea that there was public parking at the Marriott garage. So
Best kept secret in Brookline, I think.
I've been chairing this board for 5 years now, and I had no idea. So there you go. That's a great lesson in and of itself. So one of the great frustrations that I have is that we have a bit of a disjointed meter system that doesn't give us utilization data. And that's something that, you know, I've talked to the town administrator about. And I guess one thing that I would like, and I'll just throw this out there as my own suggestion, is instead of maybe a Coolidge Corner parking benefit district, we should sort of do a town-wide one with an enterprise fund where some of the money from the meters gets plowed back into parking technology and parking improvements and parking stuff like that. So we have the parking benefit district here in the village. I actually was the first and only chair of that. One of the highlights of my life is Don Shoup emailed me and asked me how it was going. Yeah, I know. It was really cool. So yeah, I shared that with Chris Dempsey, who got it going. It was just before he died too. It was really weird. But yeah, so that we've had some challenges staffing that and getting folks kind of going on that. A report like this would be really helpful to give to folks on a committee like that and sort of say, here are your options. So I think, you know, that's something that we should look at. And I think we should also look at broadening it townwide. But you know, bottom line is there is lots of space for car storage in Coolidge Corner. It's just really how do we manage it most effectively. So I appreciate the work and look forward to kind of going through this in greater detail. Questions from the board? It is a lot of information. Richard, I'm going to ask you to use the raise hand function going forward, please, sir. That's one of the things I would have asked you to do, but I didn't get a chance to talk to you, so don't worry about it. Anybody have any questions? Richard, go ahead, please.
No, it's just, we don't know what the Marriott, was the same thing what Brian brought up, was 173 parking spaces. Would that be something obviously we would find as far as like what their average availability is?
Yeah, so we have counts for that for every hour of the day. Or sorry, not every hour. Every four periods during the day. Average availability is a lot of spaces at the moment.
Really?
Okay. Yeah, I think it's 141. Anyway, regardless, it's not very full.
Yeah. No, that's a big number. And I think the Center Street lot is like what, 140 spots, if that.
Yeah, they're comparable. They're about the same amount of space.
Yeah. No, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Len.
The busiest I've ever seen the Center Street lot is during the farmers market. Do you recommend having flexible pricing, not just based on location, but also based on time, day?
So we typically, if you're starting from flat, we would say start small, right? So, you know, you don't want to go straight to some super complex system that's going to be hard for folks to understand. For something like the farmers market, that's actually a great opportunity to maybe pursue one of those shared parking agreements, right? Because it's only one day. And so you could work with somebody who has parking that might be underutilized and say, hey, do you mind opening this up for farmers market parking? And it's just these hours on this day. And you could do a revenue sharing agreement with them or a maintenance sharing agreement with them to incentivize them to do that. But that might be a really good way to address that parking crunch rather than starting with price. Jason, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's important. I think it's also good to remember, though, that it can be easy to escalate to different, like, daily prices and eventually to different times of day. But I agree with Liza, you know, keep it simple at first.
Mhm. Thank you.
Thanks, Len. Wendy, go ahead, please.
So it was the Marriott parking? Is that the hidden gem parking? What's the fee for that?
I believe the rule is it has to be comparable to the town.
But I think it's an escalating rate, speaking of complicated. So I think over time it goes up if you stay longer as a penalty. And I think that's something that should be reevaluated for sure. Because
Wow.
it is
So it's
an
really like,
unusual
it's like
thing.
$2 an hour or something?
It's
We do have it.
$1.50 an hour to start.
Wow. Yeah, that is, I have
See, none of us knew.
Um,
I guess I know where I'm parking next.
and then I had a question about the technology, the improved technology, from the user side. I mean, we have passport parking, like I'm a little bit surprised. I'm curious what people are frustrated with. It seems like we have the kind of typical, not very difficult. Maybe it's because you have to have the app. Maybe that's the difficult thing. I don't know.
So I totally agree. I found this very surprising. And again, this is why we do public outreach. Like we almost didn't include this question in the survey because we were like, oh, they have all these things. And then we threw it in there and this is what popped up. People also talked to us a lot about it at the outreach events. There was, I don't know if this is technology related, but it kind of is, there's a fee on the app. So you have to pay a little bit more to use the app. So folks find that annoying. There was some feedback about just kind of like being able to see the kiosk and that some of the meters, and Dan knows this, are not fully updated into the new pricing system. So just, you know, places where things are a bit wonky and I know the town is working to address this, but I agree, Wendy, I found that very surprising. I think it's important to remember that not everyone wants to use an app.
Right. Right. I mean, I definitely know that frustration when you go to a town and suddenly it's a different app and you're like, oh no, I have to download and set up. And then my last question is about the permit parking, like the recommendation to just kind of, you know, make that more consistent. And maybe this is for Dan, but I assume that there's a little bit of a reasoning why some permit parking only starts at 10. Like I know we always have these requests around people, you know, with tandem parking and then they can't move their car out or whatever, versus starting at 8, which I'm kind of assuming might be related to drop-offs at school. I don't know, but I'm curious whether you looked at that. Like, was there a pattern to where, is there a reason, Dan, I guess is the question.
We didn't look closely at the reasons, but I'm sure, as Eliza mentioned before, most of our signs are requested in the past. So a certain street might have been experiencing a problem. Maybe like commuters were coming in the morning and like you said, residents couldn't find a space. So that's when it became no parking or permanent parking 8 to 10. So residents could get out of their driveway, but people commuting would be tempted to park there, take the train, and then get a ticket.
Right.
So I'm sure there's reasons behind all of them, but
yeah,
didn't dive into it.
I would just offer that very often when you try to introduce a certain restriction, you have to adjust it because there's other people. So, you know, they didn't want that restriction to happen before 10, but it can only last so long. And that leads to complexity. And we often really recommend in our streamlining simplicity. And so some of those rules are really simple. You know, you can only park here with a permit. It doesn't say necessarily on the sign what permit, but you as a resident may know that there are resident permits that are available for certain areas. And you as an employee may know that your employee permit is available in certain zones. But once you start putting it on signs and confusing the regulation, it doesn't help anybody else. So that's part of what streamlining is about.
Gotcha. And the first 15-minute free idea, how is that monitored? I mean, don't you get into a situation where somebody gets a ticket and they were like, no, I was only there for 15 minutes. Like, we don't really have enforcement enough to know.
So I'll jump in here because I'm excited by this. Our current meter vendor, IPS, they have an occupancy sensor that detects when a car is there. So when it first drives in, it can start counting the 15 minutes. And then if it's been there longer than 15 minutes, it will start flashing red that it's a meter unpaid. So this is new technology. We're going to be piloting it on Holden Street. We're not doing the 15-minute free part, but we're piloting the occupancy sensors to see how they operate, and we'll be reporting back to you, see how it goes.
Oh, that is very cool. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and I think, Wendy, elsewhere it's you know, if you do enforcement via license plate, it's just sort of to your point how often that's enforced.
Nancy Moore, go ahead, please, ma'am.
Yeah, so I have experienced some technological difficulties in parking in Brookline. I've had some really frustrating days where I had a medical appointment. So I was in a hurry. I didn't have a lot of time to, you know, drive around and find something. And a couple of different experiences. First, I parked in a spot that was, you know, where the passport parking was obvious. I've used it in the past with no problem. For some reason that day, my app wasn't taking my credit card. It claimed my credit card, something, there was a problem, and I couldn't use the passport. So it said it took a credit card, and I tried to use a credit card and it wouldn't take my credit card. So I could not park in that spot. So I tried, you know, there were a lot of parking spots around. I moved to the next one over. Same thing, wouldn't take my credit card. So I left and I went, you know, sort of further in town where there was a different set of parking. And at those parking spots, there was no passport zone. So it looked to me as if there wasn't passport parking. I mean, is there passport parking on all of the town meters? Because I couldn't find it. I couldn't find any signs with the zones or the space. It wasn't showing up. And again, wouldn't take my credit card. So, you know, it was very, very frustrating. I don't know if somebody's checking to see, because it's well and good to say use an app, but sometimes the apps aren't working. And there's got to be another option.
So all our spaces should be taking passport, so we can connect later if you remember the area, I can check on it. And then
Sure.
I'm not sure about the technical issues.
And are they all supposed to, are they also all supposed to take credit cards?
All the meters do take credit cards.
Does anybody ever do any kind of routine check, or does it depend on somebody reporting to say that they're just not working? Yeah, maybe it's me. You know, I'm technologically challenged. Maybe I'm not putting that credit card.
Not here, Nancy. We've all been there.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues with the credit cards at the meter itself. But it is complaint driven. So once we get and we know there's an issue, the highway team goes out and looks at it, but they're not proactively checking the meters.
Is that Brook Online? Is that same system that you use to report other issues?
Yeah, I think Brook Online would be the best way, or to call the transportation department or the police. Most important thing is just to get the meter number. That's what we need to know.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. I've had similar frustrations. So I don't think it's just you. I think it's sometimes it's user error and sometimes it's not. So And I guess, Liza, one thing I forgot to mention that I meant to mention, and I know it was outside the scope of your area, is the parking garage at the FRR school, Florida Rough and Ridley School, which is just outside of the scope of there. That's another area where there's tons of spots that are readily available on weekends and at night that we just don't utilize. And that's something the town of Brookline owns. So, this is something that we've been talking about in relation to other schools and the need to get to sort of unlock this stuff. So, I totally take your point on that. And I also take your point on with signage. It's a sort of we've taken an incremental approach, and there's always new signs coming, but we never take down the old ones, right? So
Yeah.
that's something we need to kind of work on and get a unified approach and a font, and uniformity would be really helpful. So this is great. This is really helpful. I appreciate that. Now we're going to move on to public comments. If there's any member of the public who'd like to make a comment on this particular item, you can use the raise hand function. Please know that we do not always have the ability to answer every question asked, but we will certainly do our best. And with that, I will recognize Mr. Larry Chung. Please go ahead, sir. You can turn your camera on if you're comfortable, on mute, and make your comment.
Thank you, Brian. Just want to follow up on Nancy Moore's comment about the parking meters. First anecdote and everybody else's anecdote underscores the importance to keep all future parking meters coin operated. Was having some quarters in my pocket really saved me in a pinch whenever that situation arises. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any questions or comments on this particular item? Okay, seeing none, we are asked to accept this. Is that right, Dan? I'm trying to find my staff report. Of course, the staff summary is 156 pages long, so I'm frantically scrolling.
Yep, it's to accept this as a planning document, and let's see, I don't know if Amy or Sam has the language open. I don't have it open either.
It's for Transportation Division staff. Recommends that the Transportation Board accept the Coolidge Corner parking and curb use study for staff to use as a planning document.
Okay, is there a motion to that effect?
So move.
Thank you, Nancy. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll take that from Len. We'll spread the wealth. Someone call the roll, please.
Nancy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Len,
Yes.
and Richard.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liza. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate your effort, and look forward to continuing this work in other parts of Brookline. So,
Absolutely, and thanks especially to the town team, Amy, Aaron, Dan, you and others were all great in helping support us.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
thank you very much for joining us. All right, we're going to move on to item 5D. We already did 5C. Discussion and action on the Maimonides School Parking Permit Program Fee Adjustment. Who has this item to present?
This one's mine. So the Maimonides School is 34 Philbrook Road, which is right off Route 9 near Buckminster Road. The school has an option to have up to 56 school parking permits, and right now they have a reduced parking permit rate of the teacher permit system permit is $300 per year, and the commercial hang tag is $600 per year, and the regulations for teacher staff permits at a private school, they say that the permit should be the same rate as the commercial hang tag. This school was approved at a discounted rate. It was one of the first private schools to start using this program. And we're trying to match the other private schools in town, and also with increased parking demand in Brookline, just set it to the same regulation, $600 per permit. In your public comment, you did see a statement sent over from the Maimonides School, and we also have Merv Algae here, who's been a great partner with the town. He works really closely with our department to make sure complaints are kept at a minimum. And I think he has a statement and some questions he'd like to say. And just to highlight one thing that I think we should discuss tonight is if we do go with the increase, the school's asked if we could stage the increase. So start at $450 for the first year, and then the year after that up to the full $600. And I'll bring it back to you, Brian.
Sorry, folks, I had someone at the door that I had to let. My wife was at the door and didn't have a key, so I had to go let her in. I thought about not, but that wouldn't have been good for me in the long term. So I missed some of that. I apologize, but I remember this. I was actually on this board when we initiated the permit originally. So this is a great program, and I remember working with Mr. Merv on this. So I'm glad we got this done when we got it done. I know the neighborhood seems generally happy with it, or at least they were at one time. So does any member of the board have any questions for the school or for the staff?
And I think Merv might want to give a statement too. Sure.
Oh, Merv, I'm sorry. Please go ahead, sir.
Well, first of all, good evening, and thank you for having me. Certainly appreciate the opportunity. As I wrote in one of my letters to the Transportation Board, Maimonides goes back a long time with this program, and we were the first to start it. And we certainly realized we had to work with the town, and we certainly appreciate having the ability to find parking for our faculty. This said, we really try to manage the process day to day and make it work as smooth as possible, not only for the neighbors, but also for the Transportation Board and obviously for the police. Going forward, we've had a reduction in staff, so our numbers have gone down overall. As you might be aware that the building on Clark Road is being sold, and we now have to consolidate, and we're just going through a phase right now of trying to reorganize. And I'm just asking for the town, if all possible, that to keep the cost at a minimum, and at the same time, if you could work with us. We've had a wonderful relationship with the town and all the different departments, and we look forward to continuing to do this. And I think certainly Daniel has explained what we'd like to do, and hopefully we can continue.
I second everything you said about the partnership between the school and the town, and I appreciate all that you have done with your faculty to manage on the curb as well as you do. I wish we had that level of support from our public schools in terms of their permit parking programs, Merv. So again, thank you. So I'm just going to briefly say the staff recommendation is that we set the Maimonides School parking permits to a fee equivalent to the on-street commercial permit parking as outlined in Article 5B, Section 6B2 of the Traffic Rules and Regulations. Merv, I understand. I know you sent a letter. I read it. You were looking for more of a gradual phase-in of the fee, or could you just explain a little bit of what you suggested?
Yes, certainly. I mean, obviously, we would love to keep it at 300, but I realize that the town is has to do what they have to do too. For us, we share the cost to a certain extent with our faculty, and with our restructuring, so to speak, and reorganization, we want to try to gradually incorporate this, that we just don't hit everybody. We have a structuring fee for our faculty. If you want to park on Philbrick Road, well, it's going to cost you a little bit more. If you're going to be parking on Buckminster, what we call B, which is off Clinton, it's going to be the least cost. So we absorb 70% of the cost, the school, and we then try to create an even playing field for our faculty, because as you can imagine, the seniority issues, There's, everybody has some say in it, and we try to keep it as fair as possible. This said, we would like to gradually phase it in so that it doesn't become a big hit for everybody. And we would certainly hope that the town will understand that.
So yeah, so the standard fee is 600, and I remember when we put this in place, it was times were tough. I think you folks had been rocked by the Bernie Madoff scandal, if memory serves correctly, and we were delighted to implement this at 50% of the cost. I do think it's time that we increase it, but I take your point that it should be gradually implemented if we do it at all. So that's my particular opinion, but I appreciate again, Merv, all that you and your institution do to manage the parking of your faculty in and around the area. I know there are times when there's basketball games and other events when it gets a lot. That's just a reality of living near a school. I live near the high school, and on curriculum night and basketball games, it is what it is, right? It's just part of the deal. So again, thank you for what you do. So questions? Nancy, I do see your hand. Please go ahead.
It's not really a question, it's just a comment that I'm very sympathetic to the school's desire to implement this on a gradual basis. And if it is possible to accommodate that request, I would be very much in favor of it.
Thank you, Nancy. I guess we agree on that. My question, I guess, for Dan or Sam or Amy or whomever is I'm trying to think. So we were going to implement this at Beaver Country Day Boat. I think we ultimately did not. Is there another private school in Brookline that has a similar program? And if so, what do we charge those folks?
Tour Academy, and they're at the commercial rate of the $600.
When did we put that in place? That was recently.
That was recently, I think it was last December, so they've had it about a year.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions, comments, questions for Merv? Merv, how do you pronounce your last name? I don't want to butcher it.
Algae. Just like
Mr. Algae.
That's it.
Okay. I don't want to butcher your name. I want to be respectful. Any questions for Mr. Algae? Mr. Murphy.
I just want to voice and second what Nancy proposed with a step increase.
Thank you. Okay, so this is a public discussion. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment or ask a question of either Mr. Algae or the staff at this time? If so, you can use the raise hand function. Nancy, do me a favor and put your hand down, please, so I don't get confused, which happens to me very easily. Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns to raise at this time? Okay, I don't see anybody. Okay, so I'm going to turn back to my colleagues on the board. So I guess the question is, if we implement this at a gradual rate, do we go I guess we want to get to 600 over time, over a few years. Is $100 increase per year, which would take, I guess that would take effect every July 1 is how we do it. Is that reasonable, or is it more reasonable to go 450 and then 600 over 2 years, or $100 a year over 3 years? I'm fine either way, but I want to ask my colleagues if they have any strong feelings one way or another. Or a different thought, as a matter of fact. Okay, so I'm going to suggest we go $100 increase per year, starting July 1, 2025 for 12 months. It would go to 400 and then 500 and 600. Does that make sense to everybody? Everybody understand what I'm trying to get at? Nancy's giving me a thumbs up. Okay, that makes sense. Mr. Algae, does that seem okay and reasonable to you? Is that something you think you can work with?
Most certainly, and it's very much appreciated, and we certainly understand, and we want to make this work for everybody. And
appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you kindly.
All right, so I'm going to make a motion that we set the Maimonides School parking permits to $400 for the period July 1, 2025 to June 30th, 2026, to increase by $100 each July 1st until its fee is equivalent to the on-street commercial permit parking as outlined in Article 5B, Section 6B2 of the Traffic Rules and Regulations, or $600. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Daniel, call the roll, please.
Great. Richard,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yep.
Len,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
and Brian.
I'm a yes. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Algie. Appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you, everybody, and you should have a short evening if all possible. Thank you.
God love you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to 5E, which is discussion and action on the request by Gateway Arts for a towaway zone passenger loading zone weekdays from 8 to 9 a.m. and 2 to 3 p.m. at 5 metered parking spots in front of 9-21 Station Street. I see Mr. Lycos is here, but Dan or Sam or Amy, do you want to introduce this one?
This one's mine. As you outlined here, Gateway Arts is moving their location. Right now, they're on Harvard Street and they're moving to 19 Station Street. So your first item for this issue is relocating the parking to Station Street. They currently have 4 metered spaces that are assigned for the passenger loading, weekdays 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. So those 4 spaces will be on Station Street, curbside closest to their building. And then we're adding 1 additional space, which is opposite the street, so accessible vans can park on curbside. Gateway Arts, I'll let Greg do the introduction and maybe a little outline of the need for the accessible vans.
Okay, Mr. Lycos,
Okay,
welcome.
thank you. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for having us and for considering our request. And thanks again to Amy for facilitating the conversation. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So we serve artists who come to our studio and gallery with a range of disabilities, and many of them use the ride and other contracted services to come to work and go home from work every day. So arrival and departure are pretty big operations for us. On a given day, we have serve about on average about 50 artists who are working in our studios. So we're essentially just asking the town to allow us to shift those passenger loading zones from Harvard Street to our new space on Station Street, where we're moving in July.
Mr. Lycos, that seems very straightforward. So thank you and good luck with the move. I know that's not easy. Does anyone have any questions for either the staff or Mr. Lycos? Hi, Nancy, go ahead, please.
No question, just a comment. I was present at the meeting of the Disability Commission where Mr. Lycos made a wonderful presentation. I was unaware of this organization, and it is truly inspiring. I was really moved by the presentation and by the sort of indication and a chance to sort of meet virtually a number of the artists. So I'm very much in favor of this, and I hope everyone who hasn't had an opportunity to visit will do so sometime in the near future. When is your move?
The plan is to be in the new space at the beginning of our new fiscal year, which is July 1, probably a few days because it's the holidays. So we expect to be up and running fully that second week in July. But thank you. I appreciate the supportive comments. It is a special place, and I invite you to come see us here before we move. We've been in this building since 1980, believe it or not, and certainly we'll make sure we get invitations out to you for our openings when we open to the public in the summer.
Wonderful. And Nancy, just to follow up, I just want to know, I did receive a letter from Jim Lee And thank you for all you do on our behalf with the Disability Commission or Commission on Disability. Mr. Murphy.
It's a question for Dan or Sam or Amy, and with the parking meters and with the using the app, do they actually block usage of the meter during those particular windows? So like a person won't park there by accident and then pay for the meter and not see the sign on the meter pole, which, you know, that's the setup they have on Harvard Street.
Currently, our meters aren't set up to block out certain times. I can investigate the function, but I haven't seen that option yet with our current meters.
Yeah, on the app, or not so much mechanically, I don't see that happening, but just thinking with the apps, you know, like I was just in Boston Vision parking in that parking lot. I just see the number up on the pole. I see the number of the parking spot, and I'm not paying attention to the meter really anymore. So just curious.
Yeah, I can look into Passport to see if that's something they could add.
Any other questions? Okay, we will, let me see, is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this item or ask a question? Okay, seeing none, I guess, based on that and what we heard from the Commission on Disability, does anyone like to make a motion to approve a tow-away weekday 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. passenger loading zone at 5 metered spaces on Station Street as indicated in the staff memo?
So moved.
Thank you, Richard. Is there a second?
Second.
Dan?
Richard?
Richard, do you
didn't hear
vote
you.
yes or no, sir?
Yeah, I should have been heard. Sorry. Yes.
Apologies. Thank you.
No, no.
Wendy?
Yes.
Len?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
And Brian?
I'm a yes. Awesome. Again, good luck with the move, sir, and we wish you the best.
Thanks very much. We appreciate it.
Dan, just on a related note, will we be removing the loading zone at the current location at some point?
That's your next item, and the staff memo
Hallelujah.
staff memo doesn't say it, but we'll work with Greg to time it so we don't remove them too soon and get the new ones up at the right time.
Perfect.
Okay. Thanks again, everybody.
That was good. You like that segue, Dan? Was that good? Right. So Dan, why don't you take item 5F, which is a discussion and action on the request by Gateway Arts to remove the tow-away zone weekdays 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the 4 metered parking spaces in front of 62 Harvard Street at a time that is mutually beneficial.
Great. I think that was a pretty good summary.
Anybody have any questions for Dan? Sense. We'll just put them back into general usage. Okay, does any member of the public have any questions or comments on this particular item? And Dan, you're comfortable if we give you this authorization that you just take the time, you just do it in the right time, and just common sense will rule. Excellent. Would anybody like to make a motion to remove the tow-away weekday 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. passenger loading zone in front of 62 Harvard Street at those 4 metered spots?
So moved.
Second.
I'll take that as a yes from Len and a second from Wendy. Dan, you're getting good at this. Why don't you call the roll, please, sir?
Richard? Wendy?
Yes.
Len?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes. Well, that was all of our agenda items. This is fantastic.
I do have new business.
Of course you do. Of course.
I'm gonna share my screen so we can kind of outline it together, and I'll email this out after our discussion tomorrow. Let's see, where is my screen? Number 2. What do I see it here? Sorry, I don't know why I'm not seeing the screen, but you should see my Word document now.
Yeah.
Oh, great. So the Bridle Path, the Beacon Street Bridle Path, we've had a kickoff meeting with Tool Design. They're under contract with the town now, and they want to get moving soon. And what I want to discuss with the board tonight is the Design Review Committee. So the Design Review Committee will be appointed by the Transportation Board, and they'll be facilitating the feasibility concept and advancing it to the preliminary design. And that preliminary design will go through probably a similar process to Washington Street. We'll have public meetings. We'll have some events out in the field to engage the public. And then the goal of this would be for the Design Review Committee to vote on a concept that will be brought back to this board for Transportation Board and Select Board approval, and then it'll be submitted to MassDOT. And what we've outlined here is what we think the Design Review Committee should be made up of. These members represent the neighborhoods, businesses, the boards and commissions that we think would be relevant. And it's a draft list, so I'm open to your suggestions. It's already a long list, so maybe if we could pare it back, but I know that could be difficult. Or if you need to add anyone, we can do that now. And it is a draft, and we'll finalize it. Hopefully, we can bring this back to you in your April meeting for a vote, so we can form that committee and appoint the members. So the 2 things tonight is just to see if we could open the discussion about who's representing the Transportation Board, and if you have any suggestions on the makeup of the committee, and if you know anyone that's interested, if you could have them email us, we'll start collecting applicants and reviewing them.
So the select board member will chair the DRC, it sounds like, which is
We
usually how we
haven't
do
picked the chair yet, but that could be.
if there's a select board member on it, they got to chair it, right? I mean, it's usually how it works. So that will make things, whoever's the Transportation Board representative, is much easier. I just did the Washington Street one, so I'd rather not do this one. If anybody would like to volunteer, please let me know. It is a fun process. You do get to understand a lot of things. So that is something else. And then we will reach out to our advisory committees and ask them. We'll ask Jim Lee to nominate somebody, and those other folks to nominate somebody as well. So these are fun processes. Nancy, you live up that way, so this might be of interest to you as well.
Yeah, I think it might be. I just need to figure out what the time involved is.
All the time you have.
Dan, maybe I can chat with you just to get a sense of what you envision in terms of how many meetings. And oh, you know what? No one has said I'm sorry, Dan, when you're finished, can I raise a separate issue?
Oh, sure. Right now we're estimating 6 to 12 meetings. Not all of those are going to be DRC meetings. Some of them might be public events, so you might not need to go to all of them in probably over 16 months.
I think we had 9 DRC meetings on Washington Street, and it was a little heavy at the end as you try to get to consensus. So it was more of an intense amount of work in a short period of time than a great amount of effort, I guess, if I could say. I guess that's how I describe it. So, all right.
Question I have actually relates to my other more general question is,
please.
What's the story on returning to in-person meetings?
So the mandate to do virtual meetings expires tomorrow. The House has passed an extension The Senate takes it up tomorrow, is expected to approve it tomorrow, and the governor is expected to sign it tomorrow. She's in Boston tomorrow. So I imagine we will not have to go back to in person. I don't know that. The Senate could do something else. I actually have to attend a meeting tomorrow morning in person because the law will have expired and they will not have acted. But I think for now we can plan on doing this way. And if we do have to go back in person, the way the law is, the way that the extension was written was that only one member would have to be present and everybody else could be virtual. So even if we have to go back, maybe we could take turns. One person would be there in person or something. So we'll figure it out.
That's not what we were told at the Disability Commission.
Okay.
They were saying that you have to have a quorum in
Well, that's
person.
right. Yeah, you're right. That's right. That's right. I'm getting tired.
Except for the Disability Commission. They don't, but they
Okay.
were saying for everybody else, you have to have a quorum.
I think that's how it used to be. I think one of the changes was that we had to have one person there. Anyway, I don't know. I don't want to speculate. Let me take that all back. So I think we'll be okay to do it this way in the near term.
The select board did send a memo out asking that the quorum is in person.
Of course,
We'll see if it gets refined anytime later. Hopefully they extend it longer, but we don't know if that's going to happen.
Okay.
I just
Wendy.
the article I linked to here that
Oh,
says the
Amy.
sunset is on the 31st. And that the
Is
Senate
it?
gave like initial approvals. I don't know
The
how much
NPO
they
lied
meant.
to me about tomorrow's meeting. Those
So like almost there, almost. But yeah, it does say the governor is, it's going to the governor's desk this week. So
yeah, the Senate is expected to approve it, and the governor is expected to sign it. So you should be okay. I know. Wendy.
So going back to the bridle path, so the bridle path, the design is going to be that is going to be covered in this is Cleveland Circle all the way to St. Mary's.
Yep, town border to town border.
And so for the neighborhood representatives, are you looking for specifically like you're going to have a Washington Square, a Coolidge Corner, a St. Mary's, and
We're
maybe
hoping to get the large neighborhoods, just like you outlined, and maybe like the Washington Square representative could also speak for Corey Hill. But we didn't want to specify that yet in case we don't get someone volunteering.
Mhm.
So if
Okay,
we
and
get
then same
multiple,
with the business, it'll be
Yep.
spread across.
So if we get multiple applicants from different areas, we'll try and spread it out. If we don't, we might be limited to how many neighborhoods we're representing.
Okay, great. And I think we have to get Jules back here to represent as well, but
Richard Murphy, sir.
Just something outside of the transportation, but on the list of committees, it's like we have park and recreation, which I would think tree preservation or Nancy Heller's tree protection. I'm not sure if it's being covered under preservation, but obviously someone representing the trees. I know Mothers Out Front has started a tree team that is looking to get involved or just get information on the Sea Line project, obviously running alongside there, but that's all.
Very good point. Very good point. So Dan, when do you need answers or responses by?
I think I'll email this out to you guys tomorrow. And if you have any other suggestions or comments, you could email me separately. And we'll try, I'm hoping the goal would be for your next April meeting, we could form the committee and appoint. So moving kind of quickly.
Dan, are you
Okay.
going to send a copy of this? Because I can't read it. It's too small here, but I'd like to have a copy of the.
Yep, I'll send it out tomorrow. And if you email me in individually, I can take any more suggestions or edits if you have any. And And then we'll bring it back at the April 30th meeting, hopefully per vote.
Okay, anyone else have any new business to discuss? Richard, is your hand up for new business or is it up from before? I'm sorry. Oh, even better.
Forgot to
All right,
take it
is there a
down.
motion to adjourn?
Move.
Okay, without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful month and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you, everyone.